We're back to Author's Corner on the Total Education Network, TotalTutor.net for more information. Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook. Again, got to friend me on Facebook to see one of the most funny pictures in the world of me with a giant book bag. But you got to check that out. And unbelievably enough, we have a celebrity guest on the line, and I'm really excited to welcome the program author Leslie Zemeckis. And Leslie, you've been in many, many different features, films, and much, much more. The author of Behind the Burly Q. Leslie, thanks for calling.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. For our audience out there specifically, tell us your celebrity background, then we'll get right into the book.
Well, I don't know. I've my background is acting, live and film. And this whole thing actually came out of, I was doing a one-woman show that was kind of burlesque inspired, not even knowing what that is. And as I started to research it, I realized nobody had talked about it or who these people were or what is it. You just think it's a strip show. So I did a film. I directed and produced and wrote a film that's on Showtime now, Behind the Burly Q. But I had filmed so much, over 100 hours, that I said I have to do a book. I mean, usually it starts a book and then a film, but I like to do things backwards like this.
And through that process, we talked about it off air that today what we call stripping is definitely not burlesque.
No, and unfortunately people think when I would talk about this with people, burlesque, they would just say, were those prostitutes? And they think of it as strictly a strip show, but it was a huge variety show. There was lots of acts in it. There was comedians. There was novelty acts. You could see harmonica players. There were animal acts. It was really, if you think of Saturday Night Live, if you think of Carol Burnett, which it all comes from burlesque, it was a satire, and it was all humor, and the stripping was humorous. It was a tease. And today, strippers aren't actually stripping; they're nude dancing. So so people confuse the two, and for so long, everybody has thought of burlesque as really a second class of entertainment. That it was comedians that couldn't make it anywhere else. But these were really talented people. A lot of them were artists. It was a huge industry in our country. When the Depression hit, people couldn't afford to go to Broadway shows. People could not afford to produce Broadway shows, and the burlesque thrived. And any time there was hard economic times, burlesque thrived because it was inexpensive entertainment, and it was entertainment for the working class.
Absolutely, and would you see a lot of a larger audience of people compared to going to a strip joint in a lot of ways, that the people that would attend the...
Oh, absolutely. And what we don't realize is these people were doing 6 shows a day, 6 days out of the week, week after week. I mean, there was that many theaters, there was that many nightclubs that they were filled. It was really a big industry. We don't realize that. These people they weren't doing it part-time. This was their livelihood, and they could make a very good living. Some of the star strippers made thousands and thousands of dollars.
And from the process, when you have researched this, from doing the film and then also now writing the book, were you absolutely surprised specifically about, I guess, the people who would attend these burlesque shows compared to today, where I guess we have to hide our faces to say that we ever gone to a strip club in ways?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they would dress. It would be couples. And, it's different. It depends on the era. It depends on the city. It depends on the theater. But there was a lot of couples that went, especially in the nightclubs. And as Alan Alda, his father was a singer in burlesque, and I interviewed him. He talked about it. Burlesque started as a family entertainment, and the humor got a little more blue. The girls started to show a little more, but celebrities went. The upper class could say that they were slumming and going, but it was a broad spectrum of a broad audience. Dixie Evans, who recently passed away, the Marilyn Monroe of burlesque, because she looked so much like her, remembers on, I think it was Wednesday afternoons was Ladies' Day, and the strippers would have to go serve tea in the balcony to the women attending.
Wow.
Stuff like, I mean, you was like, what? Yeah. Well,
and through the process of a lot of research that you did from the film and then taking it to the book, it was easier than, you think it's the route you went from film to the book compared to book to film, that was an easier route, or you think a more challenging route?
No, it was easier. I don't know. The whole process was so enjoyable. We spent 4 years from the time I said, I'm going to do this, and picking up a camera with a friend, Sherry Hellard, who is my producer, and saying, let's go, and doing all these interviews. It was like, this is just never going to all fit in a movie. We had so many stories. And then there's also the factor, some weren't necessarily dynamic on camera, but their stories are fascinating, so that's in the book. There was some very crazy, convoluted stories about murders and, I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff that I couldn't get explained in the movie, but I could write it clearer so that you would understand what was going on. And these lives were, partly the time. They're very colorful characters. They really lived a life and the things they saw.
Yes. And again, you look at the characters from the burlesque place, the Burly Q, to who ran it, and the behind the scenes of the promoters of it, the owners of it, and everyone that was involved in this, you were able to highlight in the book.
Yes, and a lot of these owners were family men. The Minskys, Harold Minsky, he had his wife and he had his children, and they looked after the girls. Some would pay for schooling. Same with Abe Weinstein in Dallas, who ran a club there. They looked after these girls. I mean, very rarely did any of the strippers ever say that they felt exploited, certainly not by the owners. I mean, they worked hard, but everybody did.
And none of them were prostitutes at that time, would you say?
I would say none that I interviewed. There was a few that Alan Alda thought some chorus girls probably were or had been. Like any industry, another woman in my documentary says, look, there was as many secretary prostitutes as there were burlesque prostitutes. I mean, it infiltrates wherever. You get every kind of person. But that was not the industry. You were not hired to go out with the customer. They did not want that. They wanted you there to do a show.
How many people were happy from the Showtime show to writing the book? Were people like, finally, we're going to get more into this, understand this more, because you weren't able to answer all the questions through Showtime? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to be able to really, and so many of the men were already old when burlesque was dying down that I didn't really talk to that many comedians, but I could include them in the book. I could research and go back and get those stories, which were very important.
What comedians did you research?
Well, there's Abbott and Costello. There's other lesser, Alan Alda's father, Robert, was the straight man who would always also be the singer, and usually not sing well. That was their kind of gimmick, although his father sang beautifully and did. So it's just kind of a strange thing. A man named Eddie Lloyd, who worked maybe 30 years as a second banana in burlesque. I interviewed his son. I mean, it's just endless, the names. It's really unbelievable.
Did people think that Abbott and Costello were involved in this? Was that another surprise when you were doing your research?
Yeah, they kind of think that they were in it briefly and then got out. But I interviewed Chris Costello, Lou's daughter, and she says, look, you look at the radio shows, you look at the television, you look at the movies, they took all their skits, and that's what they were performing. And they also took all their buddies from burlesque and put them in the movies and put them and did skits with them.
Oh, wow.
It was a very insular life. It was very much us against them. And the burlesque people, which I was really surprised, they really looked out for each other. They really took care of each other. There could be rivalries, yes, of course, and not liking this. And comedians were always stealing each other's acts. But it was really kind of family. They knew how other people looked at them.
And did you see any of these women go on to other careers through burlesque?
Not through burlesque. I mean, once it died or once they got older, they went into various things. But except for Gypsy, Rosalie, no, and she didn't actually cross over very well in movies. They actually made her use her maiden name because of her reputation. The women couldn't cross over into legitimate big movie careers. It just was not going to happen. There was such the taint of being a stripper. Yes, they went on to other things, got into real estate, got into selling lingerie. One became the first female theatrical agent in New York, and it's so funny. She had this big poster of herself on the wall, and her clients never asked about it, and it was her.
So very, very interesting story. And your hope, what was the response from people, especially that remembered those times? Were they pleased, the ones that have read the book so far?
Oh, yeah. I mean, really, and it's for them. It was really great. So many of them have passed since I filmed them, at least 14 or 15 of them. But just to be able to tell their stories, some had never spoken about it before. Nobody had ever asked them. They really felt a sense of relief to talk about it and have somebody interested in it and say, "Oh, you just weren't a stripper. Like, what did you do?" And to appreciate the artistry that they tried to bring to this.
Okay, so Leslie, where can we purchase your book and learn more about you? This is just such an interesting story, and especially the history involved in this as well. So people that would enjoy reading the book would also be ones that maybe are history buffs in a way. They hear about the history and the times of that maybe weren't told very well and now are being told by you.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely been left out of the history books just because of the taint, when it really shouldn't. I mean, it was our premier form of entertainment in America in the 20s and 30s. I have a website, www.behindtheburly Q. It's at Amazon. It's at Barnes & Noble. It's in every local bookstore. I think we actually sold out our first run already. I'm going to be at the West Hollywood Book Fair. I've got a bunch of other events, book signings coming up. Moschino in New York is doing an event for me during Fashion Week. Yeah, so it's all on the website. That'll all be updated. And, the book is there.
Fantastic. When is the West Hollywood Book Fair? It's what's the dates for that?
It's September 29th, Sunday, September 29th.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm so excited promoting it again. It's fantastic to work with book fairs because they're so much fun, and you get to really talk to your fans, and I'm sure you have a blast at book fairs. It's
great. It's great. Super fun.
Well, Leslie, thanks for calling. Love to have you back on the show to talk about other things in your career and things like that. And best of luck with the success of the book. So thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, you're listening to Author's Corner, and we'll be back in just a moment.